Konnichiwa, everybody. Welcome to Last Raps Baseball's Nippon Professional Baseball Report. Today, we're going to look at the Japanese minor league system, and you'll be surprised what we're about to find. So you're probably asking yourself, why are we talking about Japanese minor league baseball? And what's next? The Kanazawa Industrial League? So let's just take a couple steps back and explain for some of our North American audience about the Japanese professional league. Each team has a professional contract roster of 70 players. So each organization will have 70 players signed to a contract. There are 12 teams in the NPB, 6 in the Pacific Division, or in the Pacific League, 6 in the Central League. Now that works out to approximately 840 professional players playing in Japan. Now, of those players, on a current roster, on a normal game day roster, you have 25 players that are eligible to be on the roster. But on a game day, they would have 28 players practicing and taking the pregame routine. But when the game starts, only 25 are in uniform. This year, because of the global events that we've been experiencing, they've expanded this to 28 players. So 28 players on a game day roster, 31 are actually practicing with the team. So what happens to those other 40 or so players? Well, some of them could be injured and could be hurt, could be rehabbing, but the rest of those players need a place to play. And each Nippon professional club has a minor league franchise or a farm team. Now, each of these farm teams have a schedule and they play against one another. Now, the key to this is the import players that we're most interested in. How many import players can play with a team or play with a team in the NPB? Well, there up until 2002, there now are no restrictions on how many international players that the Japanese league can sign. Can sign 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 players, whatever it might be. But at the NPB level, they are only allowed to have 4 in a game. And in the 4 in a game, that means that they would have maximum of 3 pitchers, 1 hitter, or a maximum of 3 hitters, 1 pitcher, or a combination of 2 and 2. Conversely, in Major League Baseball, 2 years ago, 27% of all Major League players were foreign born. So for the Japanese, what they're trying to do is they're trying to develop the players and give their homegrown talent an opportunity to be able to play. Using the United States as an example, after the events of September 11th, 2001, organizations in Major League Baseball reduced the number of visas that their teams were able to have, or the government reduced the visas on how many visas that they had. So even though at the Major League level there's no cap on players and how many are imported, in 2001, actually going into the 2002 season, they had limited the visas at that time to 25 visas per team, and that would have been from the Major League level right on down to rookie ball. So that meant that the Canadians, the Dominicans, the Venezuelans, the Puerto Ricans, actually I'm not sure about the Puerto Ricans, but the Europeans and the Japanese were all competing for one of those 25 visa spots. So if you were an import player, not only did you have to be good, you had to be really good to knock off one of the American players and take a roster spot and to get one of those visas. So in Japan, it's a little bit different. You've got a roster limit for the players, and the roster limits are unlimited except on the game day in the NPB. So the first player we're going to look at is Carter Stewart of the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. And who is Carter Stewart, you might add? Well, in 2018, Stewart was the first round pick, 8th overall, by the Atlanta Braves. This is where the intrigue begins. The Braves didn't want to sign Carter Stewart for the slot money that he was entitled to. And you can go back and look at what the slot money was, but I want to say off the top of my head, it was in the $5 million range at that particular pick. So what they turned to, it was their medical records, and they said, our doctors looked at the medical records and said, there's something wrong here with your elbow, and we're not going to give you the money that you deserve. And so what ended up happening is they went to negotiations, and of course Carter Stewart's agent was Scott Boras. And Scott Boras disputed the claims that the Atlanta Braves had put forward, saying that he had problems with his elbow, and they didn't know this before they drafted him, and that's why they wanted to offer him less money. So Boras advised his client to refuse to sign with the Braves. Once that signing window expired, then Carter Stewart enrolled in a junior college in Florida. He went to East Florida State College. And so for the 2018-19 academic year, he also played for their team at school. And in 13 starts, he was 2-2 with a 1.70 ERA with 108 strikeouts. So in May 2019, it was announced that Stewart agreed to a groundbreaking contract. He signed a 6-year deal for $7 million with the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, and that was guaranteed money. Guaranteed money. So in 2019, he spent time with what would be their equivalent of a development team, which is almost a little bit lower than the farm team that we explained about. But this year in 2020, Carter Stewart made his first appearance with the farm team. It was a relief appearance, and he came in, pitched an inning, and it really didn't go so well. He gave up a couple of runs and got knocked around a little bit. He appeared in the 6th inning, faced 8 batters, 3 hits, 1 hit run, 1 strikeout. But in his second appearance, it was a start, and he went 5 innings, gave up 4 hits, didn't walk any, and struck out 2. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on Carter Stewart, because he's got this year and 4 more years left in Japan. Once that is finished, he can come back to North America and sign a free agent contract with anybody he wants. He doesn't have to be posted. He doesn't have to wait for anything. And apparently, from what I understand, teams do not have to give up draft pick compensation under these rules in the event that they sign a guy like Carter Stewart. So it'll be interesting to see how Stewart does. Now, I've heard Stewart interviewed a couple of times. Baseball America did an interview with him in the late fall, early winter last year. And it was interesting about his experiences in Japan. And the one thing that stood out that he said, he just couldn't get up there and blow gas by hitters in Japan. He really had to pick his spots and hit his corners because the approach at the plate that the Japanese hitters bring is a little bit different than the North Americans. And he said they're tough outs with 2 strikes. And if you're watching the Japanese league or you're interested in the Japanese league, strikeouts are hard to come by in the league. It's not like North America where you can get up and blow guys away with a 95-mile-an-hour heater. They do a really good job of slapping and getting the ball on the ground with a good 2-strike approach. But anyways, that's Carter Stewart, and he's the first one on our farm report this week. I would expect that he's going to make his NPB debut sometime this season if he continues to have starts like he did this week. Our second player to keep an eye on is another pitcher, and that would be Tyler Higgins of the Oryx Buffaloes. Higgins, former Florida Marlin or Miami Marlin farmhand, appeared in 2 games in the minors this year, pitching in 2 innings, giving up a hit, walking 1, allowing a run, and striking out 3. But he's already been recalled, and last night he made his debut in a real tough situation as the Oryx Buffaloes were playing the Chibalote Marines. So he came into the game in the bottom of the 9th inning with 2 on and nobody out. And what ended up happening is he ended up striking out a pair, walked a guy to load the bases, but ended up retiring the side and got them out of a jam. Unfortunately, Oryx lost that game in 10 innings. Another reliever came in and pitched the 10th. But Higgins, making his debut in a real tough situation, gained some valuable street credibility with his teammates with that performance. Unfortunately for Oryx, through the first 8 games, after winning their season opener, they have now dropped 7 straight. The next player we're going to look at is Jerry Sands, and for those of you who remember Sands, he bounced around over parts of 5 seasons between the Dodgers, Tampa, Cleveland, and the Chicago White Sox. He had 464 Major League plate appearances, and never could get a job every day in the big leagues, so he's trying his hand in Japan. Well, he didn't start with the big team right out of the gate. In fact, he's caught in a bit of a numbers game with the Hanshin Tigers. Sands, they're carrying currently 8 imports, and there's only 4 spots for him to be able to play. And certainly they've got some production or expected production out of some of the players that they have in front of them. But on the farm, he played in 2 games. He had 7 plate appearances. He was 1 for 4 and 3 walks. Well, last night, Sands made his NPB debut, and he got his first start with the big club. And unfortunately, he was hitless in his first 4 at-bats, but that's where it gets exciting. So in the top of the 9th inning, with Hanshin trailing 6-5, up steps Jerry Sands, and he had a 3-run shot to put the Hanshin Tigers up 8-6. And they slammed the door in the bottom of the 9th, and of course that was the game-winning home run that did it. What was also neat about it, it was the first time in Tiger history, Hanshin Tiger history, that 3 imports had hits, a hit and an RBI in the same game. And so those other 2 imports were Justin Bour, who got off to a real rocky start, but since then now he's put together a 3-game hitting streak. And the other one is Jeffrey Marte, who on the other side of the coin has got off to a really strong start as he's batting just over 310 right now. So that's kind of a unique thing for Jerry Sands. Keep an eye on him. I actually think that he's kind of a player that really would do well in Japan. His style of play should lend itself to the Japanese league quite nicely. The last player that we're going to look at is third baseman outfielder Zealous Wheeler. For Wheeler, the 33-year-old began the week as a Rakuten Golden Eagle, but ended the week as a Yomiuri Giant. He began his NPB career in 2015 after he'd spent time in the major leagues with the New York Yankees. In 2014, he appeared in 29 games with the Yankees and hit 193. And for those of you who are checking out our channel and are certainly in this community, he homered in his second at-bat off of Minnesota Twin pitcher Phil Hughes. And for those of you who may not know, Phil Hughes has his own channel in the YouTube community called Phil's Polls. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link below in our comments section to Phil's page, and you can go over and check him out. But he began his career in 2015, Wheeler did, with the Rakuten Eagles, and he hit 14, 27, 31, 15, and 19 home runs in those consecutive years. This year, he had 1 game in the minors, and really don't know what the situation is with him and Rakuten. But he was traded to Yomiuri for pitcher Shun Ikeda, a diminutive left-handed pitcher, going the other way. What's interesting is that the Giants have a number of import pitchers, but really only have 1 import bat, and that's Gerardo Pereira, who was with the Washington Nationals last year. Now, obviously adding Wheeler, a 33-year-old veteran bat, I would think he still has some game and some pop left in his stick, and going into that batting order, it just makes the Yomiuri Giants bats that much deeper. So that's the farm, and that's all we have on Wheeler. So keep an eye on him, and we'll see where it takes us. Well, that's our look at the Nippon Professional Baseball League's farm teams and the import players who are making contributions at that level. If you're new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. We'll be back again each day of the MPB season to give you updates on the import players and their contributions to the NPB. Thanks again for watching our video, everyone. Have a great day.